Hello. I thought since I initially talked about what to do in life, I thought it would be very interesting to really understand where this is coming from and what is the background and the context of this. And I think it's very interesting to think in terms of values. It's like these principles, these words, these columns that in a way enable everything else to be delineated amongst them and however framed by them. In a way, they distill something. It's kind of a compressed way to communicate a lot of things, which I think is very helpful. Through the last 50, 100 years, as we have progressed from modernity to postmodernity and whatever comes next, values have changed in modernism. The modern way of thinking about values is that we're in a forest and there are some people who are forging the path, or the path is already forged. There are a bunch of options. There are people who maintain the forest, there are institutions, and there are things. Then we just walk the path and there's a destination. We can choose some other paths, but there's a good path and a bad path. Eventually we arrive somewhere. And then there's the postmodern way of thinking, which I would say it's more like an ocean. There are no fixed paths, right? You can go up, down, left, right, forward, backward. Very open. You're kind of alone. You're kind of like, okay, maybe I can go left, right, go right, whatever. And somebody tells you, oh, you know what? You should follow that path there. And you're like, well, is that really a path? It's just water, isn't it? Well, there isn't really a path, and there are no paths. I can do whatever, and it's the same. In a way, this is it's an improvement in the sense that we're not so fixed in our thinking, and we can also entertain other ideas and different ways of how we can live. But on the other hand, we lose the ground. In a way, everything is possible. It just feels like some things which are obviously bad are now not bad, and some things which are obviously good are not good. So, what are we supposed to do? What I want to suggest is that let's go a step further. Maybe we are in an ocean, but that doesn't mean we can't build solid structures, we can't ride the waves, we can't have some purpose, and also very interesting to understand that some outcomes are actually better than others and much preferred. We want to go there, and that's fine. Not everybody wants to go there, and that's also fine. Some people want to go somewhere else. Yeah, that's a more interesting way to think about values. Now, another problem with values is people think, okay, what does it really mean to have a value, right? Because obviously there will be cases that you will not be able to sustain your value. One of the simple examples is to think about honesty. I'm honest, but what happens if I don't want to disappoint my very old grandma and I lie to her about my performance or whatever? Then we could say that there are no values really, like it's pointless to think about values. So this is where I disagree, and I will say that it's not. And the fact that we have values doesn't mean they're absolute values. What matters and what's very interesting is to think about values, how they relate amongst themselves. So, how some values relate to other values for us. I would say another word to think about is the priority of values for us. So, I have these values, which are my values, and they are the values that support the video of what to do in life. I like these values. If you like them, then we can be friends or work together. But if not, then you can use it as a reflection and understand what you think about your own values. So the first value that I think is very interesting is compassion. Why this value connects to my video is because I talk about making things for all people. I think compassion is quite interesting because it's a very Christian word, it's a very religious word that we should, we should do these things. I'm not interested really in this way of thinking about compassion. I'm interested in it from a very practical perspective. The practical argument for compassion is that we will inevitably suffer, all of us will, and it's a great idea if we build infrastructure, social infrastructure, that will help us not suffer. When I say us, I mean ourselves and our friends and our family, but also everybody else in society and the world. It's easy to think that, not as a bad way, it's easy to think that I care about myself and I care about my family and my friends, but these other people out there, I don't know them to care for them. And I think that's a fair argument. And my answer to that is we can't just solve this individually and we can't solve it on a family level. We have to solve it on a social level. So, this infrastructure that will alleviate our suffering and everybody's suffering, it has to be large scale somehow because we interact with everybody. Like we live in this society where there's all these people and all these services and all these institutions, and there's school and there is everything. There is generally this idea that there is productive work, which is very important and is what drives wealth, and then there is care work, which is kind of like whatever. But I really think we can't have productive work unless we have care work. Let's start very simply by thinking that we need to raise children to grow up and some of them do productive work. The people who are producing will get sick, they will get tired, there need to be people to care for them in order for them to continue producing. So really, I don't think we should consider care work less important. Another very interesting value is power. Why is it connected to the video? Is because we need power if we want to bring some change, if we want to do things differently or do things even. Generally, people feel that power is a bad thing and they don't want power because power corrupts. I agree that power corrupts. We should be careful about that and have checks and balances, transparency, and general mechanisms to prevent that. But at the same time, I'm not interested in power as domination. There's this idea in democracy that everybody holds some power and everybody holds a little power, but all together we have a lot of power and can do important things. What really happens is that people don't use their power, and in a way, most people are not interested in power at all, which means that a lot of other people who have different, possibly nefarious purposes, gather all this power and then they do something that is problematic for the people who gave up their power. I think it's important that we hold our power and do good things with it. I'm not saying take the power and do things for yourself. I'm saying do things that are beneficial for everybody. Now, next is fearlessness. I define it in a bit of a different way. How it relates to my first video of what to do in life is to not let our ego get in the way while we want to do these things. And the way it works is like this. Usually, we think of fear as something that either we have and we don't want to experience ever, or that we have and that we need to conquer, to overcome. I want to invite you to think about fear in a different way. It's more like to remain open and to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. This is more related again to the ego. Don't be afraid of hurting your ego or your image or will think what will people say. And this is more, not to do it in a dominating way, but to do it in a way that's like, this is me. I thought of those things. I did those things. I think they're the best things that I could do, or really good things. I'm open to criticism. I put myself out there, and I think maybe I could do better. I'm open to hear how. It's really more about this tenderness, I would say, and this gentleness. There's no need to be aggressive to defend ourselves. It's like we do these things and we think they're good, and if they're not good, let's improve them. Three more values. One is hope. What's the point of hope? We're in a bad situation and we don't see how things would work out. And if we have hope, then we can think, oh, if I do or do that, if I do this or that, then eventually this might happen, and then we could see some light at the end of the tunnel. If we don't have hope, then we will never do anything of those things, and we will never discover the light at the end of the tunnel. People generally have this idea that hope is a problematic concept because it urges you to not act. This is the opposite of what I'm saying. We want to act because we have hope that we will figure out a solution. What we don't have is data that this thing will work out. If we had data, then we wouldn't need hope because we have data. So obviously things will work out, right? When you don't have data, you need hope, which is a blind faith that will help you progress into the next step. This is the motivational energy in order to do the things that we want to do. Another value is perseverance. And we need that in order to succeed in our mission. The point of perseverance is not to have rigid self-control or self-punishment. The point of perseverance is to follow the plan and not the mood. This means that we follow a proper system and a proper approach, and we're like, okay, this is what we want to do, this is what will get us there, this is the plan, we execute the plan. The plan might not work, we will need to change the plan. There are risks, yes, we're going through this process. We stick with the process. We need to be patient for the process to be completed. We need to be focused when we're doing our job, and we need to be determined that this is what we're doing and we will see it through to completion. So that's perseverance. The final value I want to talk about is curiosity. I think curiosity is a great value, and the way it connects to my previous video is to keep exploring, keep learning, keep improving this mission that we want to engage with. Curiosity really is about energy and aliveness. We keep going, whatever we explore, and we don't stop and think, okay, I know enough now, I know everything, and there's no need to see more of the world. Curiosity sits on the opposite end of arrogance. Arrogance is about thinking that you know everything, you know enough, there is nothing else to explore or understand. You have a closed mind. Curiosity is about having an open mind and having a beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is somebody who is a beginner and feels like they don't know and everything is open and all possibilities are possible. They are willing to walk the path. The expert's mind is the opposite, closed off mind. It's the mind that says, I've seen all possibilities and I know from the beginning that this is that. This mind does not allow for new things to be created and appear, and it's the mind that can progress and can change. And we can especially see that in scientific revolutions and Thomas Kuhn's book. The experts can't find the next step in science. We need the newcomers who are not, who their ego is not connected to this thing and they are open to entertain very different and wrong ways of thinking. So this is what I want to say. I hope this is helpful and interesting mainly and inspiring. Okay, goodbye.